I know many of you are tired of masks and social distancing and endless Zoom meetings where we are together, but not quite. The eyes may be the windows to the soul, but it sure helps to see the whole face when you're speaking to somebody. And social distancing leaves us all anxious. How close is too close? Are hugs okay yet? And Zoom meetings like this, while so great, just don't quite have the same energy as being together in person. Masks, social distancing, and Zoom, we are together, but not quite. Racism embedded in our systems, in ourselves, means that even when we are together in real time and real space, we still aren't quite together. In Unitarian Universalist spaces, many people of color have to edit themselves to fit in. They don't see too many people who look like them. They may have to politely laugh off racist comments and microaggressions, and may not hear stories and songs that reflect their history or culture. Unitarian Universalism is, after all, a culturally white religion. We arose from Protestant Reformation in Europe and the Transcendental movement in the Eastern United States. Our history, our culture, our norms are largely white. I'd be lost without my Birkenstocks and Mary Oliver poetry. So, of course, it's a challenge to change. Cultural shifts ask us to become aware of our unconscious assumptions and biases. And that takes time, and it can follow those well-known stages of grief because it's as much a feeling process as it is a thinking one. I know that I began with denial. I'm not racist. And then moved into pain and guilt. I'm so ashamed and embarrassed that I am racist or express racist thoughts. And then comes anger and bargaining. I get angry at myself for feeling racist, for having those racist moments, and I bargain that I'm only racist in some ways or sometimes. And then comes depression. It's too much. I can't change. It's all overwhelming. It's too late to learn. And then finally, acceptance. Okay, racism is part of me. I'm part of a racist society. Reaching that stage of acceptance takes time, and it has taken me years to move from denial to acceptance. And I still sometimes end up back at denial because the process isn't linear. These feelings recur over and over again as we encounter racism and oppressions in all their different forms. And that's why, because this process is so complicated and we go through it over and over again, I'm so proud that as a system, UCM has reached that stage of acceptance. I know within the system, individuals are all different stages, but as a collective, we have acknowledged this truth that has been obvious to people of color their whole lives. They have always known that we are together, but not quite. But like masks and social distancing, racism keeps us apart. And unlike masks and social distancing, racism only keeps white people safe, and it prevents all of us from living fully in community. Together, but not quite. Last spring, the Dismantling Racism Study Group identified racial bias within Canadian Unitarian Universalism and made a recommendation to adopt an eighth principle, the one that calls us to individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. To date, the Unitarian Congregation of Mississauga is the only congregation in Canada to have voted to affirm the eighth principle. Our national body, the Canadian Unitarian Council, is holding a vote in late November to claim this principle for Unitarian Universalism across the country. And we will be sending delegates. And I wish I could tell you this is a done deal and we will unanimously affirm the importance of dismantling oppression as a denomination. But I don't know. People really are at various stages, but I do have hope. I can already see that the conversation around the eighth principle has challenged us to speak openly at last about racism within our community. The CUC is actually holding national forums over the next couple of months that are helping people engage with all those complex feelings and thoughts that arise when confronting racism within ourselves. And so I have hope that as Canadian UUs, we are wise enough to see that dismantling oppression helps us all, however we word the principle. The words can change and evolve over time. Here at UCM, leadership is beginning to look at what we need to do to uncover and shift that bias as individuals and as a child's community. And we're in the process of forming a task group to guide us as we offer learning opportunities and tools for change. Dismantling oppression is now one of our fundamental Unitarian Universalist principles. And it's up to each one of us to understand how it will guide our choices in the years to come. I see religion as a way of framing humanity's relationship to the greater whole. As Unitarian Universalists, our fundamental relationship to all that is, the mystery, God, the universe, is one of interdependence. And this interconnected web of life means that we're all in this together. What affects one reverberates throughout the web. We tell stories of connection and care and use the principles to guide our choices, to try and live into that vision of interdependence. And as I said, our new 8th principle says, individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. And the short form is simply dismantle oppression. This principle acknowledges that we don't live in a society founded in connection, founded in interdependent web, but it's one that's based in exploitation. Colonialism and capitalism are rooted in using people, mostly brown ones, to meet the needs of the wealthy few, mostly white ones. And if our interdependence is calling us to love and justice as our national vision states, then we are being called to dismantle oppression, to change the culture. It's no biggie. You can get it done by Friday if you're motivated. Obviously, it will take a lot longer, and it will be harder and more challenging than we think. There's pain and trauma to navigate and hold, and the way forward is full of nuance and complexity. But the sooner we begin the journey, the better. Theologian Richard Rohr notes that an evolving faith is one that accepts and even embraces change. And Unitarian Universalism, if nothing else, is a faith based in ongoing evolution. We constantly evolve and change and grow as we move through time. Right now, we tell this story of interdependence, love, and justice. 100 years ago, we were telling a story of freedom, reason, and tolerance. 200 years ago, our story was about the unity of God and God as an all-living being. Who knows what story we will be telling 100 years from now? But right here, at this time and place, interdependence is the story we're trying to live out. Rohr notes that transformation happens when something falls apart. The pain of something old cracking apart or unraveling invites us to evolve instead of tightening our controls and certitudes. Racism and other impressions are unraveling. It's been happening for some time now, and it's time to let go and evolve. The path of the 8th principle is challenging. It's going to be rocky and uneven. We'll all need to go at our own pace, and the signposts aren't always clear, but it will take us where we want to be. We know that if we want to welcome in young people, families, people of all backgrounds, we need to do this work so that people of color don't have to keep arriving and seeing that we're not quite as welcoming as we think we are. And I have faith that we'll walk this path together, helping one another to live by the 8th principle so that we can help create that community which is truly all together. And in Canada, we have this particularly painful history where white Europeans, the settlers, took the land of sovereign peoples, people with sophisticated cultures, with art, ritual, and complex social relations that looked very different than the ones in Europe, and pushed those people aside, letting them die from disease and starvation and addiction and contaminated water. And of course, this isn't just history. We're still living it today. And that's why this Thursday is that first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, a day to honor the lost children and survivors of residential schools, their families and communities. Thursday is a day to reflect on this painful truth, that our society is founded in policies that intentionally destroyed First Nations cultures. Residential schools and the 60s scoop of Indigenous children happened in our lifetimes. It's an ongoing thing that we have to face. And so this Thursday, you're invited to wear an orange shirt, that symbol of the lost generations of children. There are events and webinars happening in Mississauga, Brampton, and Toronto. And we're going to be sending out a special Shining Chalice on Tuesday with more information if there's something you would like to do that day to mark the occasion. And I want to encourage all of you to spend time on Thursday with a spiritual practice. Journal, meditate, light a chalice, breathe and be. Renew your spirit. And as Ojibwe writer Richard Wagami says, keep what's true in front of you. You won't get lost that way. What's true is that we live a legacy of racism. What's true is that we can do the work to dismantle it within ourselves and our institutions. What's true is that we are all in this together as part of the interdependent web of life on Earth. What's true is that we now have this 8th principle calling us to dismantle oppression. It's our work to do. And one day we will truly be all in this together. We just have to walk the path. May we do so. So say we all.